Hello, thank you for joining us. This session is on reporting requirements. This is the last session of the workshop. Our of Post-Loan Servicing Financial Operations Branch. Our branch will handle all post-loan servicing activities, including legal release of funds, affiliate agreement approval, and sale of assets, release of liens. So essentially, you'll be working with us for the life of your project or the life of your loan. And in most cases, it'll be about 20 to 30 years. The objective of my presentation is to help you access the funds earmarked for your project without delay. I'm going to provide some recommendations and reminders. The agenda for my session will include some topics that was covered last week. I'm going to highlight some details. Closing documents. For closing documents, you're going to get security documents, closing instructions, DACA general terms, DACA specific term of a council template, UCC HCH form for all awardees, and CIP form for loans and loan grant combo awardees. For grants, you'll get security agreement and UCC filing. And in some cases, you're going to get UCC filing and intercreditor agreement when you have existing lender. Loans, you'll get loan agreement, UCC filing with mortgage, or intercreditor agreement. Now, if you don't have real property, you're going to get intercreditor agreement. For existing RUS borrower, you get restated mortgage. And for loan and grant, it's similar to loans. UCC filing. This question was asked early on. It's a document to evidence that RUS holds a claim to the asset you pledge as a collateral. There are two types of UCC filings. We will claim the lien on all your assets. And the other type is we claim specific asset that's financed by RUS. And I'll get into that later on. I want to mention special conditions as it related to NEPA condition, especially the last sentence of this section. Awardee will agree that there will be no construction before the NEPA is complete. And if there's significant changes to the project, we could deobligate the funding of this project. Service obligations for grants. It's going to be the composite economic life of the assets. And I'd like to note that for the grant funded assets, RUS takes on behalf, which means U.S. would not share the lien on the grant-funded assets on pari passu basis with other lender. On loans, the service obligation is either the composite economic life of the project or the life of the loan, whichever is longer. Again, in section 5.10, it's mentioned again that for loan grant combo, the grant funded assets, RUS will take exclusive first lien on behalf of the government. So RUS will not share the grant funded assets with other lender on pari passu basis. On the closing documents, make sure you have received the correct type of security instruments, and make sure you have received the complete set of closing documents. If you're not sure, contact RUS right away. I'm going to talk about the release of funds procedure. The release of funds is handled by operations branch. The release of funds means that the awardee has entered into the legal agreement. It also means that the awardee has met all the conditions precedent to closing, and release of funds prescribed in Schedule 1 of the agreement. After the funds is released, the processing of the financial requirement statements 481 are handled by the engineering branches, and we have to review the we need to make sure the financial compliance of each awardee. Engineering can proceed with the funds release. Before we can provide the legal release of fund, we need to receive the properly executed documents within specified days. In most cases, it's within 120 days, and depending on your environmental requirements, you could get days to return your legal documents. The following documents must include original signatures, security documents, DACA agreements, certificate of authority, and the legal opinion. And please remember, the legal opinion needs to be printed on the letterhead of the legal firm, and it must be signed with original signature. And you need to return the CPA information form, certificate of resolutions. Also, it's important to return the automated clearinghouse form. And at the bottom of the form, it needs to be signed by the financial institution. And for loans, you need to return the CIP form to St. Louis. Now, ACH form, it ties to the pledge deposit account, and the CIP form will tie to a different account from your company. In addition to the legal documents, you'll also provide evidence that all of the Schedule 1 of the agreement have been met. There are many details to the closing documents. I'm going to mention some of the common errors so that you can proceed with any delay. First, the agreement must be executed by the authorized official. Make sure you print her name and title. Second, the ACH form must be signed by a bank officer. This happens a lot in the past. An awardee official will go ahead, sign that ACH form, and then we have to return the form and ask you to submit another one. This will delay the fund release process. And the original ACH form must be returned. And I understand in many cases, this may be many miles away from the bank, several days to turn around to get the original ACH form. So digital signature on the form is acceptable. Next thing to remember is that you only return one original set of agreement to RUS. We're going to send you two sets of security instruments. You're going to execute both of them and keep one set for your record. Do not return both sets to us. In some cases, awardees might take the originals, we send them and make copies of them, and then execute on the copy. That's not acceptable. You have to execute on the original document we sent you, and then return the original set back to us. On the certificate of authority, the individuals listed must be the individuals authorized to requisition funds associated with the project. And the form must be signed at the bottom. And one thing to avoid is to make sure you complete all the documents and then send all documents in one packet. If you send them separately, the process. Here's another reminder to keep in mind. No construction before the NEPA is complete. The fund release is complete. You still cannot start construction if NEPA is not complete. I'm going to cover events of ReConnect funds. According to Article 4, there are several conditions precedent to closing. Conditions specified on Schedule 1. And different awardees might get different conditions. So you need to take a look at Schedule 1 to make sure you meet all the conditions listed there before we can proceed with closing. Section 4.3 listed all the advanced conditions, and when you review the documents, make sure you review that section carefully before you submit any advance request. So earlier I mentioned the pledged deposit account. That account has to be insured by FDIC or other federal agents acceptable to RUS. And once we set up the ACH account, all advances will be deposited into account. Matching funds and other funds must be maintained on deposit in the pledged deposit account. RUS has first and prior lien on pledged deposit account. On the pledged deposit account, it could be a checking account or savings account. And any interest received on the account will be pledged to RUS. When you requisition funds, funds will be advanced first, followed by grant funds. Grants, matching funds will be advanced first, followed by grant funds, with the exception of approved pre-application expenses. Those will be funded by grant funds. When you require, you're going to submit Form 481. All matching funds will be treated as award funds and recorded appropriately on the FRS. You can request funds based on your contract or invoices that's expected to be paid within 60 days. I think we talked about this slide previously. Keep in mind, the funds in pledge deposit account shall be used solely for the purposes approved in the application and shall be dispersed for the approved purposes for which they were requested on the FRS. And for funds that are used for funds requested to use grants, as I mentioned earlier, RUS will take exclusive first lien on the grant-funded assets. So it's required that you're going to submit detailed description of the funded asset associated with each grant advance request. And for each grant advance request, you're going to update the UCC filing so that later on, if you're going to request release of lien, it can be easy to proceed. So it'll help you in the future if you're going to request release of lien on a particular asset. Financial requirements. For 100% grants, the awardees will be required to meet 2 out of 3 requirements. The 3 requirements are time interest earning ratio, debt service coverage ratio, or current ratio. The minimum requirements are 1.2 for each of them. And you're required to maintain at the end of the 5th year, and also required to maintain positive ending cash balance starting from each year of the forecast period. For D with no existing debt, you are required to maintain a current ratio of a minimum. And the requirement of cash flow is the same as the grant with existing debt. For 100% loans, you're required to meet a minimum of 1.2 tier DSCR current ratio, and you're required to meet 2 out of 3 of them. And tangible equity to total assets, you must at least maintain 20% at the end of the calendar year, and the 3rd year, and ending in the 5th year of the award. You need to maintain positive cash flow from operation at the end of the 5th year of the award, and maintain positive ending cash balance for each year of the forecast period. For loan and grant awardees, the requirements of this 100% loan, except the equity requirement, eliminated. I'm going to touch on the reporting requirements, audit requirement, annual audit, and I want to point out for loan, humble The requirement is spelled out in 2 CFR 200.502. And if you have security document, it's mentioned in section 6.3. Because the government committed this long amount, the requirement to submit the audit is you execute the document. However, because of the COVID-19, for borrowers that are required to submit audit in March or April, RUS is providing an extension of 60 to all borrowers. I think this was covered by our accounting folks early on. For reporting requirements, the quarterly reporting, it's due 30 days after the end of each calendar year quarter. All awardees are required to submit balance sheets, income statements, and cash flow. And some rate packages, number of customers taking broadband service on a per community basis, and completion of status of the build out. So just every time you submit an advanced request, and to make sure you submit your report, we're going to review your quarterly reports. We're going to review your audits to make sure you are in compliance. And for the audit, make sure you're in compliance with Articles 5 and 7 of the agreements. In addition to quarterly report, my annual report, and it's required for 3 years, starting the first January 31st after project completion, and to submit the following information using RUS online reporting system. The information, existing network service improvements and facility upgrades, estimated number of end user, progress towards fulfilling the objectives for which the assistance was granted, speed and average price of the most subscribed tier of the awardee's broadband service offering in the project service area, and average prime service in the project service area. And there's an annual report. It's due 30 days out of each calendar year. And you are required to submit updated service area maps through the RUS online mapping tool, showing the area where construction completed and geospatial location of residences and businesses receiving new broadband service until the entire proposed service area can receive the broadband service. So the purpose of the ReConnect program is to provide service So it's important that keep the service obligation and we're providing the service. So that's the um, purpose of this annual report. At the time of project completion, uh, after the expiration of the award or expenditure of all award funds, awardees should submit the project completion report. Failure to properly report may result in the suspension of advances. So that's it from my presentation. Now I can take some questions. Okay, here's one question. Is UCC filing necessary for a municipal applicant? I assume that an intercreditor, okay, that's a separate question. The first question first. The answer is yes. Entity, you still need to file. The difference is for-profit entity, when you submit the UCC document, make sure you check you are a entity. And for applicant, your UCC document, you don't need to check that box. The second question is, is more likely with these types of applicant. Please clarify. Intercreditor agreement is when you have other lenders and you don't have mortgage. That's where you need the intercreditor agreement. Says, I have not received the legal documents yet. Are these still being worked on for some applicants? When can I expect to receive these documents? Yep, we're still working on some documents. The majority of the loan documents have been sent out. I say the majority, more than half of them. I would say within the next couple of weeks, all of you should receive the closing documents. The next question, 100% grant recipient, but on corporate minutes for the meeting, we need to have said that we were our borrower. Is this correct? If you are a 100% grant recipient, you are a grantee. Next question. We received our legal documents. Good. There is original of the agreement, so I can't keep the original as my own copy. Suggestions. You need two sets, and you cannot make copy for your own. Next question. Can you please repeat when RUS annual reports are due? I think I heard a 30 days extension for all borrowers. So until April 30th, 2020. According to the ReConnect program, annual reports are due 30 days after the year end. You may be referring to an extension that's related to the COVID-19 situation. I need to get back to you on that. We might have done something out of the request of other borrowers. Next question. Will RUS potentially supply awardee with a documents checklist for the various reporting time frame? It's a good suggestion. The documents checklist. So I mentioned quarterly reports that's due 30 days after each quarter ends. And there's a semi-annual report. There's an annual report. I think we can compile a checklist and send it out to all awardees. Next question. So are you saying municipal? Okay. This is a follow-up from the first question. It's about filing for the municipalities. And the answer is yes. Municipalities are still required to the following question. We are an RU, it's an electric cooperative. Could we use our current construction bank account? It's preferred to have a separate account for your ReConnect project. So I would advise you to open another bank account for the pledge deposit account. But for your CI, continue to use your current account. Government entities with power to tax should only have to obligate tax revenues, shouldn't they? I'm not sure. I'm going to. I have to follow up with you on this one. Okay, next question. Did you say that audit reports due April 30th have been extended for 60 days? Yes. Um, it's been extended for 60 days for audit that are due in March or April because of the COVID-19 situation. That's all the questions I have. And thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.